Made with love by Indigrow.
Hi everyone. So today we're joined by Mitali Ruths. She's here, an author, and here to tell us about the wonderful series of books that she's been writing about this gorgeous little girl called Archie. Welcome, Mitali. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so excited to share the book, Archie Celebrates Diwali. It came out in 2021 and it was illustrated by Parwinder Singh. And his illustrations are so gorgeous. Like you can see on the cover, it just kind of glows and dances. And it shares the story of Diwali from my experience growing up here in North America, in Texas. So it was like what Diwali was like in my neighborhood in the States.
That's amazing. So since you started us on your conversation about growing up in the States, in Texas, tell us a little bit about your childhood. What was it like to be the Indian child in your neighborhood? Were you the only Indian or did you have other Indian friends? What was it like for you growing up?
So I grew up in Houston, Texas, which has a huge Indian community. My family is Bengali American, but of course, when you're in the neighborhood, you make friends with all of the Indian families there, Punjabis, Gujaratis, Tamilians, North, South, everybody's mixed together. And of course, a lot of people from the outside don't realize that even though we all come from the subcontinent, there are lots of regional differences and cultures and customs. And so it is kind of funny because growing up, the big celebration around Diwali time for me as a Bengali was Durga Puja. But I grew up celebrating Diwali with all of my Indian friends. It was really a celebration that was a really big deal in the community and brought everybody together. And it was also something that we could share with everybody around because it has good food, good music, lights. And so it was like at a time of year that could invite everybody else in. And it was a way that all the different communities came together.
And tell me something about school. How was it for you in school? Were you the only Indian child in school? Did you have other Indian classmates to share the concept of festivals as such in school?
So I was lucky enough that I grew up around NASA, the Johnson Space Center. So there were a lot of engineers, and a number of those engineers came from Indian American backgrounds. And so I was not the only one at my school. There were a lot of other Indian kids and Asian kids as well. But it was kind of interesting because at school, we might see each other on the weekends at like these Indian parties that our parents would show. And the parties were so important because it's the way that my parents formed community and had these get-togethers. So it was almost like at school, I might have a different group of friends. I might say hi and hello to some of my Indian friends, and some of them we were in the same classes together. And then it was different on the weekends when we would get together in our own homes, have a different kind of food. So it was like we were American at school and we were Indian American at home.
And was that ever a challenge for you in terms of, because this is something that a lot of kids who are, bicultural or multicultural often talk about, right? This idea of assimilation. Yes. How do you kind of fit into the environment that you're part of? And while it is something that comes very naturally to children who are multicultural, sometimes it can also make you feel like you don't quite know where you fit in, or you don't quite know where you belong. So how did that kind of play out for you?
So, it was really funny because when I was young, I think I just have a personality that loves to belong. And I don't know if you've heard of the acronym ABCD. So this acronym, for the longest time, until I got to college, I thought it meant American-born confident desi. I really thought that the C meant confident, and it meant that like you owned your desi heritage. Like I would wear jeans with a kurti to school. I would always be sharing, hey, you want to try this? It's called a samosa. Hey, you want to try this? It's called a lassi. So I was like very excited to like share, to talk to people. I was very curious. And it was only when I got to college that somebody really started laughing and they said, ABCD doesn't mean American-born confident desi. It means American-born confused desi. And it means that you don't belong really in either place. And I think that it only as an adult that I realized the work that my parents and family did to make me feel that I really belonged in both places. And it was really like the work that they did to let me know that you are Texan, you are American, and you have South Asian heritage, and you don't have to pick. You are both, and you belong in these places. And I think growing up in that Indian community, I don't necessarily belong in India, but I belong as part of the diaspora here with special cultural touchstones that connect me to other people of South Asian descent that grew up in the States. And even if they're like from a completely different background than the Bengali background, let's say, like you go over to the house and there's certain familiarities, like that just feels comforting, even as a grown-up now, where I have kids like in a multicultural environment, and I've moved again to Canada. But it's just like I've always felt like I've been lucky because I've always thought of myself as an ABCD, but with the C being a confident they see.
Clearly, you've been influenced by your upbringing and your life as an author. So can you tell me about your journey as to, at what point did you decide, okay, there's this book that's bursting out of me that I really want to write and share with the world? What was that thought process? What kind of led you to that moment?
I've always been a storyteller, and like I've long written books, like written stories to share with people, or books that are, like never got published to a wider audience, but that were just for me and my friends and my family. And then it was actually having kids and moving to Canada, and my partner is not Indian. And so now but I wanted to pass on my culture and my heritage to them so that they could also belong to all the many worlds that they're now part of. And so when they were little and it came time to celebrate Diwali, I was looking for stories. And, 5 years ago, there weren't as many options, or there were a lot of options that told the story of the Ramayana or that were set in India, or, like in the sense that they go to a school where there isn't a holiday for a week and there isn't celebration all around them. And so these aren't the things that they're seeing or experiencing here. And I feel very lucky that in the past 3-4 years, we've had almost like a renaissance. So along with Archie Celebrates Diwali, there are so many other beautiful books about Diwali that's about Diwali being celebrated in the diaspora as the communities become more visible and grown and become like more visible in the mainstream. But at the time, like reading to my kids, I was like, there's no story about the way I celebrated Diwali growing up, and it's going to be the way that you experience Diwali. It may not be a holiday from school. You may have to go to school on Diwali, and then you come home, or on the weekend we'll have this party and the celebration. There may be people who come over who know about the celebration, but you may also invite your friends who are less familiar and may not know anything about it. And so it's kind of like sharing that kind of story, that it can be such a huge celebration for so many people in the world, and yet it could be so special to you. And how do you help other people join in that celebration and share that celebration?
And I think that one of the things that really struck me about your book is that, sometimes when we talk about festivals, or when we talk about religion, or any of these, cultural symbolism, so to speak, we tend to hold it very close to our chest, right? And we tend to be almost like cultural gatekeepers, saying, oh, it has to be done a certain way, and you have to kind of, it could be intimidating for somebody, like you said, who doesn't know about the cultural, the significances or the background or anything like that. And what I like about your book is that it truly approaches it from a spirit of sharing. It approaches it from a spirit of, we're all in this together. We're discovering it together. And the idea is, come into my world, right? Come share my life with me, and it's almost as if, Archie standing there with her arms wide open saying, come, right? Welcome home, and
Yeah. And
And
it's something that she explores through the story too. She feels anxious at first because she doesn't know what people are going to see or what they're going to respond to or how they're going to perceive her family or how her families are going to act in front of her friends. But it is something that she develops that pride or that certainty as she shares, and she sees that people enjoy it and that she has something to share
Yeah.
that will help everyone. So it's so nice of you to say that and to point that out, because yes. And I wanted this story of Diwali to be as inclusive as possible, because like we said earlier, like the celebration of Diwali itself has many different stories, many different ways of celebrating depending on where in India, where in the world you are. There are different aspects of it that get celebrated in slightly different ways, you know, and every family might have their own traditions or the way that they do things. And, you know, like in India, obviously it's broken up into different days, different celebrations, different events, whereas here it might be just one big festival, one big day, with everything kind of mixed together and everybody bringing their own traditions into a big like mismatch. And also, even though I share the story of the Ramayana, at my school and growing up, Diwali wasn't just celebrated by Hindu Americans, but it was really something that was celebrated by everybody in the diaspora. So it was celebrated by Jains, by Sikhs, by, you know, even our Muslim friends who came over, they were like, I'm all about this, you know, and we would celebrate Ramadan too, because we were part of this diaspora community. So it was just like, it was very intentional to make it a story that was as open to all the different faith communities that celebrate Diwali. I think many times people think of it as a Hindu festival,
Yes.
but like many other festivals, it's gotten so big that it's really celebrated by people of many different faiths.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, right? The thing about festivals is that it transcends its origins in some ways, right? And I think Diwali is one of those festivals like Christmas or Eid or any of these, right? That really have the power to transcend their religious roots in that sense.
Right.
And even in India, I mean, I grew up in an India where, you know, Diwali was celebrated by everybody. We ate biryani for Eid at the end of the Ramadan period. You know, Christmas, we all had Christmas trees in our house and eagerly awaited Santa Claus. You know, I mean, these were things that we all grew up with. And like you said, we grew up as part of a community, right? And I think that that's somewhere the universal truth is that festivals are about sharing, they're about community and family, it's about good food, it's about, you know, love and respect. And these are universal truths, you know, and it can be shared by anybody.
Yes, and in today's world, with everything that's going on in India, in the United States, in Canada, with politics, with division, with nationalism, it's so important that we honor these celebrations and make them inclusions and an invitation in. And Diwali is like the perfect metaphor for that, because it's like the celebration of light over darkness and like people coming together and sharing food. And, you know, like it's just, we need to have more celebrations together. That's what's needed, you know?
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about your book that's coming up soon.
So I know this is probably unusual for a picture book, but Archie Celebrates Diwali actually has a sequel or a companion book that's coming out called Archie Celebrates an Indian Wedding. I don't have a physical copy yet. It comes out in the spring. And it is the story about Archie and this again was inspired by my own search for a story that I could share with my kids, about Archie's uncle, Poppy uncle, getting married. And then his wife, who is not South Asian, has a niece, and Archie has to help this niece, navigate a big, awesome South Asian wedding. And it's like, again, told from this perspective of being in the diaspora and having had a cross-cultural wedding, and then taking my kids to Indian weddings, and they're like, Mom, what's going on? What is the priest saying? What's happening? You know, what's going on? And I think now, as again, like South Asians are becoming more mainstream, more people are curious about and learning about Bollywood style weddings or these other cultural weddings, and, you know, including like seeing them in shows and in movies. And people want to learn about these traditions and share these traditions and have them explained, like, why are we walking around the fire 7 times? what are the vows that are being spoken? Why is there a mandap? Why are we exchanging garlands? Like, kind of like seeing and celebrating all of those steps that connect us to all the generations, even though we've transported them to a place. And even, I will say, even in the context of my own wedding, like my in-laws would ask, okay, what's we're doing? And my mom and dad would be like, I don't know. Like, this is what's going to happen, because it's, like realizing that also as part of the diaspora community, we're also curious about our connection with some of these traditions that were brought over by our parents. And now that they don't have their surrounding people, or you're explaining to maybe other vendors who are like photographers or other people who may or may not be South Asian, who are now capturing these South Asian weddings in the United States, in Canada, in the UK, in Australia, in South Africa, and all of the places where the diaspora now lives. Like, this is like a book that's like an invitation for everybody to experience the joy of an Indian wedding.
Oh, it sounds absolutely amazing, and we can't wait for it to get released. One thing's for sure is that we're going to definitely have you back on to talk about that book some more in lots more detail when it comes out.
That'll be great.
In the meantime, I just want to say thank you so much again for having been on this journey with us. And where can we find Archie Celebrates Diwali? Is it available in local bookstores or on Amazon? If you could let our viewers know.
It's everywhere books are sold. So yes, check your local bookstore, request it at your local bookstore. That's always the best to help support the book community around you, but it's available on Amazon. And if you're in the US or Canada, in Indigo, Walmart, Target, wherever books are sold, really.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mitali. It's been a pleasure chatting with you today.
Likewise, thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Visit us at indigrowkids.com for more.